Berlin, January 30th, 1943. Nazi propaganda had prepared an elaborate spectacle, a celebration of Hitler's 10-year rule. The Air Ministry building, a towering symbol of Nazi power, loomed over the gathered masses. Reichsmarshal Hermann Göring was set to take the stage, his speech meant to reassure a nation on the verge of losing faith. Despite the display of unity, the war was not going well for Germany. The Eastern Front was collapsing under the weight of Soviet counterattacks. The mighty Sixth Army was dying in Stalingrad, trapped and starving in the frozen ruins. In North Africa, the British and Americans were advancing relentlessly, threatening to expel the Axis from the continent. The Luftwaffe, once the most feared air force in the world, was bleeding out, stretched thin, and losing control of the skies. Yet, Göring stood tall, his chest puffed with medals, his voice about to declare German strength unshaken. But as he inhaled, preparing his grand speech, a distant sound rumbled through the air. It was low at first, barely distinguishable over the fanfare. Then it grew, a deep, droning hum, unnatural in its persistence, cutting through the morning sky. Some in the crowd turned their heads. Göring's hand tightened around the podium. His eyes, trained to detect the impossible, shot wide open in horror. At that moment, he knew. Berlin was under attack. Far away, at Royal Air Force Marham in England, a small group of elite pilots had spent the morning preparing for one of the most daring missions of the war. The plan was as simple as it was audacious: bomb Berlin in broad daylight at the exact moment Göring was delivering his speech, and then strike again when Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi Minister of Propaganda, would address the nation in the afternoon. This was not just about destruction, it was about humiliation. Britain had long searched for a way to prove to the German people that their leadership was lying, that the Reich was not invincible. If British bombers could reach the heart of Berlin at the height of Nazi celebrations, what did that say about the Luftwaffe? What did it say about Göring, the very man who once boasted that no enemy plane would ever reach the capital? It was a mission designed to break Nazi morale, not through sheer firepower, but through psychological warfare. And for that, the Mosquito was the perfect weapon. The de Havilland Mosquito was unlike any bomber before it. Fast, agile, and built almost entirely of wood, it could outrun most German fighters, evade detection, and deliver precise strikes with deadly efficiency. The crews chosen for this mission knew the stakes. If caught, they would be vastly outnumbered and slaughtered in the sky, but the risk was worth it. Their objective, to make Göring choke on his own words. At 8:50 a.m., 3 Mosquitoes roared into the sky, their Merlin engines tearing through the morning fog. Squadron leader Reynolds led the formation, his bomber hugging the tree top level to evade German radar. The bombers streaked across the North Sea, past the Dutch coastline, cutting dangerously low over enemy-held territory. They were moving too fast for flak guns to react, too low for radar to detect. As they crossed into Germany, the pilots remained silent, focused, eyes scanning the ground below. Every small movement, a train station, a watchtower, a flash of sunlight on metal could mean a threat. Flying just a few hundred feet above the earth, they navigated by rivers and roads, threading their way toward Berlin. They pushed their engines to their limits, every second counting. If they arrived too early, the target wouldn't be ready. If they arrived too late, they would lose the element of surprise. By 10:50 a.m., they climbed, rising from the mist like phantoms, their target now in sight. Below, Berlin sprawled out, its citizens unaware that death was screaming toward them at 400 m. At exactly 11 a.m., as Göring began his speech, the first Mosquito broke through the clouds. A moment of silence. Then, a deafening explosion. The first bomb struck just hundreds of meters from the Air Ministry, shattering glass, stone, and Nazi confidence. The crowd, so disciplined and orderly moments before, erupted into chaos. Göring's words drowned beneath the thunder of British firepower. Inside Reichsrundfunk, the Nazi state radio engineers scrambled in sheer panic. The sound of bombs and aircraft blared across the live broadcast, shattering the illusion of Nazi control. With no other choice, the engineers cut the transmission, and for the first time in Nazi Germany's history, its voice was silenced. And in that silence, something even more damning took its place. With no speech to broadcast, the engineers defaulted to music. The solemn, haunting strains of Bruckner's funeral adagio filled the airwaves. Instead of Nazi dominance, the entire Reich was now listening to a funeral dirge. Berlin was not celebrating. Berlin was in mourning. As Berlin burned, squadrons of Focke-Wulf, 190 fighters from the Luftwaffe, were ordered to take off from Tempelhof airfield. 6 FW-190s accelerated, setting their sights on the retreating Mosquito formation. An RAF pilot received an urgent warning over the radio. The Mosquitoes immediately dropped to lower altitudes, skimming the ground to maximize their superior speed. Their Merlin engines roared as they weaved through forests, flying low over rivers and towns to evade anti-aircraft fire from German fighters. But one Mosquito was hit by an 88mm anti-aircraft shell, its left engine engulfed in flames. The pilot struggled to maintain control, but the aircraft began to spiral downward.
I can't hold it anymore.
A tense voice crackled over the radio before the Mosquito crashed into a forest outside Berlin. The rest of the squadron accelerated toward the North Sea, hoping to escape Luftwaffe-controlled airspace. The Focke-Wulf Fu-190 pursued relentlessly, unleashing bursts of 20mm cannon fire at the fleeing Mosquitoes. A shell struck Bill Wright's wing, causing it to shudder violently.
Damn it, we're running out of time,
Wright shouted, desperately trying to steady his plane. Suddenly, one of the Focke-Wulf Fu-190 exploded mid-air. Flak from Allied defenses in the Netherlands had found its mark. Seizing the opportunity, the remaining Mosquitoes plunged lower, flying just above the water to utilize their speed and shake off the attackers. After over an hour of tense retreat, each Mosquito gradually landed back at Royal Air Force Marne. The pilots emerged from their cockpits, exhaustion etched on their faces, but their eyes gleamed with pride. They had just executed one of the boldest missions of the war. The Royal Air Force Mosquitoes returned safely to England, completing one of the most precise daylight raids on Berlin. Intelligence gathered during the mission provided valuable data on enemy defenses, flight paths, and air response times, aiding future operations. The impact of the raid was immediate. Berlin's air defense forces were placed on high alert, and Luftwaffe units were forced to divert resources to better protect the capital, affecting the allocation of aircraft on other fronts. In the following months, the Luftwaffe increased anti-aircraft defenses and fighter patrols over Berlin, recognizing the vulnerability that had been exposed. The British raid also served as a significant propaganda tool for the Allies, demonstrating their ability to strike deep into the heart of Germany. Meanwhile, within the Reich, operational adjustments were made to improve communication during air raids, ensuring that such disruptions would not occur as easily in the future. As the war continued, the Mosquito squadrons would play an even greater role in precision strikes across Europe, refining the tactics that had proven so effective in the raid on Berlin. January 30th, 1943, remained a notable day in the air war over Germany. The skies over Berlin had been challenged in broad daylight, and for the first time, the Reich's carefully controlled image of dominance had been interrupted by the sound of enemy engines overhead. The raid on Berlin was just the beginning. Over the next months, the war in the air would escalate, with the Allies pushing deeper into enemy territory. But what were the Luftwaffe's next moves? How did Germany respond to the growing threat above? Find out in our next episode, where we uncover the daring Allied bombing campaigns that shattered Nazi strongholds across Europe. Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter of history.